Não, mas... Então, a gente pode dar início aos trabalhos. Eu queria, então, fazer as apresentações e em seguida eu passo para a professora Lodge. A gente está recebendo hoje o professor Camilo Rosales, da Florida International University. Já a Lodge faz a devida apresentação. E a gente tem na mesa como moderadora e debatedora a professora Lodge Abreu, sequência de conforto ambiental, participante também do laboratório Habitat Clima, que está sendo montado atualmente e que tem tudo a ver com as questões que vão ser abordadas aqui pelo professor Rosales, e a professora Pérola, com sua especialidade, né, é professora de paisagismo, mas tem uma especialidade em paisagem e ambiente. Então, para a gente não demorar muito, eu preciso só fazer mais uma observação a quem nos assiste remotamente e a quem está aqui. O professor Camilo tem um outro compromisso, e ele vai fazer, então, uma palestra um pouco mais curta, 40 minutos, e depois a gente abre para um debate de 15 minutos, porque ele tem que, em seguida, sair. Tá bom? Então, ele fala e, a seguir, a gente abre para as perguntas. Professora Lodge, por favor.
Boa tarde a todos. Eu vou apresentar o professor Camilo Rosales. Primeiro, agradeço por você ter aceito o nosso convite, um pouco de última hora. O professor Camilo Rosales é arquiteto e urbanista, formado com honras pela Universidade do Texas, em Austin, mestrado na Universidade de Harvard, e é um premiado arquiteto associado, AIA, com base, ele mora em Miami, e é professor da Universidade Florida International University, FAU. Como profissional, praticante, ele recebeu prêmio de design e ensino do American Institute of Architectures, e seu trabalho pessoal foi publicado em revistas e periódicos de arquitetura internacionalmente. Antes de ingressar na Florida International University, o professor Rosales trabalhou com alguns escritórios renomados nos Estados Unidos, e fez parcerias com o Frankel Gehry, participando da entrada vencedora para o redevelopment do Madison Square Garden. Ele também trabalhou com arquitetônica em Miami. O professor Rosales foi diretor de arquitetura da FAU e fundador do Conselho de Ecoturismo da FAU. Participou de ampla variedade de conferências nacionais e internacionais relacionadas às questões ambientais. Ele recebeu mais de $1 milhão em bolsas e contratos de pesquisa. Convido agora o professor Camilo para fazer a sua apresentação. Obrigada.
Thank you, Monica. I'm going to talk as slow as I can, so you can translate appropriately. I wish I could speak in Portuguese, which is a language that I like very much. I like Brazilian music immensely, and it's just too bad that I cannot say much in Portuguese. This lecture is going to have 3 components, and they're all related to sustainability and also related to energy savings. The most important project, I worked on 3 countries, in Chile, in Brazil, and in Trinidad and Tobago. And your professor Lloyd worked with us in Goiânia, Brazil, and it was a very interesting experience. Let me see if I can share screens with you, and it may take me a minute because I frankly thought that this conference was 1 hour later. The change of time has been complicated for me. I thought it started at 3:15 p.m. My time in Miami, and it's actually the reverse. It starts earlier. So my apologies for that. Let me share screens with you. Let's see if I can get there. Just a moment. Do you see my screen?
No.
How about
You
now?
get? No.
Okay, I'm very sorry for that. Let me try. I have my screen here and I have the share screen with you, but for some reason it's not coming through. Let me go back to Zoom for a moment. And let's see, share screen. Okay, Zoom. Do you see my screen now?
Tela do Zoom.
You do. Okay. The Zoom screen. Okay, now let me my browser. Okay, now let's see if I can get the right program. Just a moment. Do you see it now?
Não, o browser.
Boy. Your browser. Okay, let's see what we can do here. I'm sorry for this. Zoom is kind of tricky. Let me start over again and see if this comes through differently. Resume share, new share. Do you see it now? Nope.
Sim.
Yes? Okay, good. Okay, excellent. So at least we have that. Sorry for that. Okay, so this is, I titled this lecture, Energy and Sustainability in Buildings. And it's something that I have done in my time at FIU. The first one, this is in a three-part lecture. First, I'm going to present you 4 solar houses. Then the larger program is the energy savings in municipal buildings, which, as I explained, was done in 3 countries. And then a house I designed in Costa Rica about 10 years ago that has some of these components. So let me switch to the first portion. These are 4 solar houses, and one was done in Miami. The other one was done in Miami and transported to Washington, D.C. And the third one, actually 2 of them, were done in Valdivia, Chile, with the University of Valdivia. And so, I'm going to start by saying that these houses have very radical, different climate areas to operate. I don't know if you can see my pointer. Do you see my pointer in the screen moving? Hello?
Sim.
You do see my pointer in the screen? My cursor. Okay,
Sim.
perfect. So we are in Miami, which is at the very edge of the Tropic of Cancer. And Rio de Janeiro, as you can see, is the very edge, also the Tropic of Cancer. And most of Brazil is in tropical area. But the projects we have were one to be transported to Washington, D.C., which is latitude 40 around here. And the other one was in Valdivia, Chile, which is also latitude 40. So they were dealing with air conditioning and heating for very different areas in which these things were produced. So let me show you in 2 conditions of tropical architecture in traditional vernacular sources. This is something that you may know. This is an architecture of dry areas in which you have very few openings and very thick walls and flat roofs. This is not something we have in our wet tropics. Brazil is fairly wet. It does have a few desert regions, but they are small. Mexico does have some. And of course, the Middle East and North Africa has plenty of dry land in which this architecture is common. Our architecture is more like this, with a big roof and plenty of open space, an enormous amount of open area. Actually, if I put my cursor again, the area for living is relatively small. The area of enclosed space is relatively small. living happens to be in a semi-outdoor with a shaded area. So you can say that the tropics have two conditions that have been very more or less common. Dry areas and urban areas in traditional architecture has what is called a courtyard house surrounded a patio in the middle. But in rural architecture, the middle portion is the one that is private, and the surrounding area is shaded outdoors like corridors. This is not uncommon in the Americas. Probably Brazil has farms and rural areas that are not dissimilar. So an example of a courtyard house that is very common in the Americas, with rooms and a corridor surrounding a central open space. And you got an example in Mexico, which is fairly dry, a good portion of Mexico, and not dissimilar than southern Spain. The other one, which I have by the letter B, is not uncommon for us in the Americas. Some Indian tribes use this kind of architecture. Peasant architecture is like that. And there are versions that are more established that is not uncommon for Spanish and Portuguese settlements in rural America. Well, I'm presenting this because the projects we have deal with this form of thinking in which the structure is either surrounded by open space and a large roof. And this is the project we sent to Washington and the first two houses that I'm going to show you. This is the competition that happens in Washington every year. Is for solar houses. And after the success of this one, it's been others in Europe, and I understand there's one in South America as well. In this, there are 20 universities competing for a prize, and they give you a small lot in Washington, and they give you the dimensions of the house. But the house has to exist without any support from utilities from the city, especially electricity. No electricity connection, no water connection. And so they have to be, as they say in English, off the grid, outside the grids of utility lines. There's a solar decathlon, as the competition is called, in Latin America. And in 2019, it was celebrated in Cali, Colombia, which I have with my pointer here. And Brazil participated with this building. You see the flag of Brazil in there, and you see the solar house that is not dissimilar to the ones that we presented. This is the competition that we had, and there were two entries for that one. This is the one that did not win the support of FIU, but I thought it was very, very good. On the left-hand side, you see a diagram of the plan of the building with the element in the middle, which is the private area, the gray element, which is a surrounding corridor, and then the black area, which is an open corridor. But this is nice because the same thing that happens in plan happens in the section. The section has the private space in the middle, a surrounding area for living, and then the roof itself on top. So we took a clue from older architecture in the Americas. These are American Indians that have an interesting way to see the business of living. This diagram shows two roofs. The one on top, it looks like a pergola. You can call it the sunroof. This is only meant to block solar infiltration in the building. And the one on the bottom is called a rain roof. This is to support rain. So with these two roofs, the living spaces are in between, you may say, or below that. And so this works fairly well if you think that this house has to be built in Miami, which is semi-tropical, and then transported to Washington, which is more temperate. And so this is the diagram of the house with two roofs. The first roof with the rain roof is actually made for photovoltaic cells and capture energy in here. The second roof, which is the one in yellow, is the rain roof, which closes the building. And then between the corridor outside and the living space inside, there's an area in between here, which has two layers of glass. I mean, one layer here, another layer here. And then the middle portion, which is private, is where the bathroom is. So you get the plan of the house with two layers of glass, gray areas like some type of corridor. This pinkish area is the area for living, bathroom, and the mechanical system is here. And then you have a broad terrace around it. And this is the way the scheme was planned. And I have, a whole series of diagrams in which the thing has to be built in Miami, dismantled completely. It has to be done in prefabricated pieces, put on a truck, and sent to Washington. And there's some more diagrams of what happens in winter and summer, or when you have cooling and heating. This space in between can open or close, and so allow breezes to pass through and cool the house. And this can be open and only one close, or you close both systems, and then they retain heat in the case when you need heating. This is for water collection in here on the right-hand side. And the top shows the two suns that you have for different latitudes. The summer sun, more likely, Miami is more vertical, and this is more tropical. And the winter sun, which is more on temperate areas. So the building was to be designed that way. And this is the way that this whole scheme is made into pieces, so it could be transported. This is particularly interesting, and I don't know what level of education you have at this point in architecture, but you may have encountered these systems already. We use two solar systems. One that is called solar thermal, which is the one you see on the screen. This is to heat water. And the other one is photovoltaic, which is to capture energy from the sun and produce electricity. So this one produces hot water, which is immensely important because hot water is not only for in bathrooms and in your shower that you have in this tank. It also can be transported to what is called an absorption chiller, which uses heat to produce air conditioning. So with hot water, we produce air conditioning. And air conditioning can be done, then from this point, the air handler that you have here is made into ducts and goes to space as a fresh air. But the same hot water can be used in winter for a radiant floor. So you have the piping in the floor and it produces heat. So the same source of hot water can do this couple of miracles. On the one hand, it produces heating for a northern latitude, and on the other, it produces also air conditioning. So you get here a diagram of the two systems operating from the mechanical room. And I won't talk too much about this. And this is the last picture of that scheme that was not selected. The one that was selected was this one, which was cheaper to build. The other one was actually quite good. It had a lot of support, but then the group jurors, because we invited a group of people to decide on this, decided on this one, which was a little simpler. And this was built. This is the one we have right now at FIU after moving in Washington and getting some prices, actually. It was permanently built in our campus at FIU, and it's serving as the Office for Sustainability. This one is kind of intriguing too, man. It's got some interesting points. The first thing is that they look very much similar. It has a private area with the bathroom and an area with a mechanical system. An all living area happens around, but it has only one scheme. It doesn't have two like the other one. And then a large terrace around. It has photovoltaic cells as well. And it's got a large solar collector for hot water. But this did differently than the other one was to have a great deal of insulation. Instead of having two glass skins, as the first house I show you, this has a very thick layer of insulation. I mean, this is solid insulation that prevents this house from overheating or overcooling, and also has this louvers that open on and close for shading. But also in Miami, we have hurricanes, as you may know. And so this shading devices also act as hurricane shutters. And you see the hurricane shutters there. So if I use my pointer again, this devices roll inside and then come down, collapse down, and close the glass. So it does work for hurricane-prone Miami, and also works as a shading device for, whichever latitude we choose. This is very large in hot water collector. So the photovoltaic devices are on top of the roof, but the hot water are here. And this can produce, as I said, both heating elements and also air conditioning. And so you get, this was part of the requirements for this competition, to put these diagrams on the wall next to what the machine room is. And you can see the various elements inside, which have the converted for electricity, the mirroring devices, and the air conditioning devices, the hot water tank, and so on. So I got a little closer here with the photovoltaic cells. It shows you where in the United States has the most solar collectors, which happens to be on the west. You may know Arizona, New Mexico, very, very hot, and don't have that much clouds. And so it's got plenty of solar energy. Then the middle portion of the country, including Florida, is about the same. And then the coolest part of the country is the Northeast, Boston, Chicago, and so on. This other diagram shows the way the two collectors work. The photovoltaic cells work for producing electricity and returning some of that energy to the grid, to the public grid. The other solar collector, which is made of hot water, works for the hot water tank and some of the devices, including washer and dryer and so on. This one, at this point, was not connected yet to the chiller that produces air conditioning. So this was done before we installed that device. So these are the last pictures of the house. I'm going to show you the interior. It was done very nice. But one element that I haven't mentioned is that this was done by students. This work was done by students physically working by hand. The last components were done by a professional group. The business of doing metal, which we could not do the metal on campus. But all the carpentry, flooring, lighting, and so on, all this was done by students like you. And that was very nice. It was a whole year of work. Many students work on this project, maybe as many as 60 at different points, because it was different classes. And so one class did one thing, another class did another thing. And it was very rewarding from that end. And then you continue on and on with the kitchen and the dining area. You can see the bedroom area on the right-hand side, but there's no bed because now this is an office. One more of the same. And then finally, the bathroom that you can see inside there. And this is the last picture of that group. I also work with the University of Valdivia in Chile. And they also proposed solar houses, which were very intriguing. This one was called Casa Valija. I don't know how you translate that into Portuguese. The name is Der Valija, like it's suitcase will be in English. The suitcase house. And it's very, very small. And the plan I really, really like, because it's got the four elements of the house that are needed. In this case, the kitchen, which is on the extreme right, bathroom, but it's tiny. You have a toilet and a lavatory, and then the shower in the middle. Then it's got the bedroom, which is a collapsible bed that can be stored back. And it's got a desk with computers, with space in the middle for living. Very, very nice plan, man. This was not built, but it was designed in such a way as to be transported, like if it was going to compete with the solar decathlon in South America, like the one I show you in Cali. The one that was built was this one, which is a house more for the climate of Valdivia, Chile. This is for a cool region the south portion of Chile is fairly cool. It's got long winters, about 6 months. And so the thing here was to collect heat instead of produce air conditioning, like the one we have in Miami. And so you got a 2-story house with plenty of skylights. You see the skylights are enormous, man. These strips here, sorry. The strips are there in the roof. And you got skylights also here because the idea is to collect heat to attract the sun instead of putting shades like the one we did in Miami. So it's a totally different climate. And when I left Valdivia in 2016, they were completing this. Unfortunately, I never got pictures of the house completely finished. But it was a very beautiful project done with wood. It's a wood producing region in Chile. They have a fantastic forest. And so they took advantage of that. All right. So my second part of the presentation is on energy savings in municipal buildings. This was a grant by the Department of State, a fairly large grant for academia, and involved 3 municipalities in 3 different countries. In Valdivia, which is, I was also participating in the solar houses. In Goiânia, in Brazil, a place I didn't know and happens to be much bigger than what I thought. Very nice people. And I met your professor there, or through them, I met her. And then the last one was in Trinidad and Tobago. So you got the 3 countries here. Trinidad is on top, at least in pictures. This is, I think, Goiânia in the middle, and then Valdivia at the bottom. I won't read what it is because it's pretty much what I've been saying, talking to you, but it's reading there how the grant went on and so on. Now, this is different than our normal practice of architecture. Our normal practice, we have a client and we have engineers. But when you do public buildings, municipal buildings in which there are many more stakeholders, then the group is far bigger because you have now aspects of the general public. You have building owners, you have planners, you have a state government components, you have engineers, landscape architects, utility managers, code officials, and the public in general. It's a lot of people that are combined here. So we had to approach many of these groups in the course of the project to understand how energy is used in buildings, because energy is not used by itself, it's used by humans like us. And so humans come from different directions. Sometimes they are professors, sometimes they are doctors, sometimes they are government officials, and it goes on and on. How these people use energy was of great interest. The first moment we have in Valdivia, and what you have on the right-hand side are students with one professor. The professor is the taller person in the corner. Valdivia is very green, it's a beautiful countryside. It's located there in Chile, latitude 40, about the same as the state of Washington, D.C. And the city of Valdivia is quite beautiful with a big navigable river and plenty of green around. I won't read this, but the challenge here was to understand temperature throughout the year and relative humidity throughout the year and how the sun works for natural illumination. And what is different as well, of our normal practice of architecture is that when we deal with energy, we don't measure things so much. We care about form, about distribution, about the look of buildings, and not so much with the numerical component, with quantities, which is something that the engineering profession deals more with, forces and so on. So this project about energy was about measuring how much energy was spent, how much energy can be saved. And these parameters are very complex. It requires a lot of, data. And so the collection of data was enormous. Spent months trying to do that. So in Valdivia, the challenge was to lower energy in about 50 schools. The public buildings of the municipality were schools and just one municipal building, one large municipal building. So what you see here is one of the schools that we tackle as pilot projects. And you can see in the middle, the month of the year and the amount of energy that is consumed. But this is like a synopsis, a summary of something that happened through many iterations, many measurements that took a long time. And so those measurements were something like this. You know the number of people using the building. You have 39 professors, 20 assistant professors, and 500 students. And then make a record of every single piece of equipment they use, like fluorescent lamps. Here's most of it is about lighting, because Chile has that difficulty. Or most of the schools have all lighting systems that were kind of warm, and they were not good for energy savings. We spend more time on this rural school, very small school in the outskirts of Valdivia. Actually, a very nice little school made of wood. And we did the same thing, checking on them or with them the amount of energy used in different ways. I'd just like to show you a simple experiment that was conducted. And this is with a power meter. The number you see there is probably in BTUs. If it was in metric, it would be in watts per square meter. And this is showing the equipment against the window without any curtains or anything like that. The measurement is 362, I suppose is BTUs per square foot, which is a measurement that we use in the United States. The same thing done with just insect screen that you can barely see. This is insect screen here. This is another window that has insect screen. This one has none, where this one has insect screen. Are you following at this point? Everything okay? Hello?
Sí.
Is this fine? Is it coming through the Okay, excellent. Okay. So the second measurement was done with the insect screen, and it's dramatic, from 362 BTUs to 82. And if we put blinds, this is Venetian blinds, then it drops again, meaning that with some simple measures, energy could be managed and curtailed. This is extraordinary in the sense that a simple building with simple measures can do quite a bit with solar energy, not only for the production of energy like we did in the solar houses, but with prevention of energy coming through the building and heating the building. So this were more measurements done, and we realized that the great problem that this little school had, or at least one of the greatest ones, was in illumination. This is lighting. You have 81% that I'm pointing here. Most of the energy was coming from the lamps they had. And then we measure the amount of solar energy solar light. This is not energy or like heat, but just light coming through the building, checking the windows. We made more measures throughout the year. This is, as I said, immense amount of information that was recorded. For that, we use various devices. This one is a little monitoring plant that checks the climate, the amount of solar exposure. And the beauty of this is that we could review the information in Miami. We put this little plant in Valdivia, and via internet, we were reviewing the information in Miami. We also put sensors in the windows, and these sensors record the temperature passing through and the amount of light. We also could see this in Miami. And we use this, what is called a FLIR camera, which, this is common equipment. It's used all over the world. This is not necessarily new, but it's actually very handy. With this thing, you see the amount of energy passing through the skin of buildings to see how well sealed the building is, especially in doors and windows, the little cracks that sometimes happen. And then temperature from the outside can penetrate the inside. In the case of Chile, the problem was heat. They need to have a hot building. And so those cracks allow cooling to pass through. And light and energy in that sense was pre-coded, as I said, more stuff. I'm just showing you the number of ways that this was recorded. In this case, it was a little section, and there was a tabulation of the amount of light passing through. Well, at the end, we managed to seal the windows better and change the lighting system of this little school, put blinds where were needed, and achieve a good amount of energy savings. This was a day of celebration when the school received a certificate. This is the school principal with a certificate that they have achieved a saving of energy, about 20%. And these are the staff of the school are happy with the condition. And then the school kids were celebrating with the mayor of the city, which is there, the principal of the School of Architecture in Valdivia, and myself here, and others that helped us with the project. Then this thing did not end there. It was actually a very good program because it allows to give us monies for talking about this to a general public, instructing the public. And there were many, many sessions with the citizens of Valdivia about energy savings. There were pamphlets made and presentations made in different schools. There was also radio information and telling people how to save energy in simple ways, not too complicated. And there were also little publications in that sense as well. We got a few of them there. And it was also press in the newspapers announcing the program of energy savings. And then there was this little card that was done to be distributed in all schools and so on. And they're very easy. They are even made for children or school grade individuals. Then simultaneously, this didn't happen one first and then the other. We actually did the project together. The three municipalities were together. This was done in Goiânia. And wow, what a big city. I wasn't expecting at all. I knew about Brasilia, obviously, because of the new architecture, but not about Goiânia, which is very close by. Goiânia is towards the middle of Brazil, very close to Brasilia, as you know much better than me. And then I took this picture from the outskirts, and wow, and this incredible skyline. Big city that we don't have big cities like that in the Northern Hemisphere. Really, this is a very big city. At least the skyline looks like that. And this is what was written initially by the first group that participated in this project. Then the first group changed because the principal moved to the United States. Eric Rosa was our principal, and then moved, and then have another person taking the helm, which was very nice to work with. So I'm going just to pass through. You can read some of the Portuguese. This is the summary. Resumo, I suppose is the right word, and explaining more or less what I have done or said before related to the project. And again, the locations of these things, our Miami location, and then the three municipalities. The steps that were done by every group, are very well explained here. The first step is to analyze what are the current policies related to energy. We need to know what was on. What was the codes? What was going on with energy in every municipality? Then the second step was how to improve those policies or codes or regulations. The third one was to create action plans. What could be done to demonstrate that this was possible with an economic way? Like the thing we did with that little school in Valdivia. And the fourth portion was to monitor the results. In other words, don't stop there. We reduce energy in a few pilot projects, maybe, and then check how it can be improved over the years. So the schools in charge were supposed to do that. The objective was to reduce energy 10 to 15% in a building, demonstrate that, and then use that demonstration to bring that experience to other places. And so in that sense, create a public benefit. But Goiânia was enormous. There were about 400 buildings. These are just the schools. It was an immense project to begin with. And then we realized that this, if it happened, was going to take many years. Even these institutional buildings were, a number of them. I got 24 there. And then on top of that, there were other municipal buildings that were done with health. These are hospitals and clinics. So it was an enormous task, an enormous project that, obviously was very difficult to achieve, even from the beginning. That included also a library, in a modern building of some interest. At this point, we had a change in the people that was involved. I'm going to just point that your professor Lloyd is there with Carla Emanuela Ribeiro, which was the person that we dealt much with. But the two of them were involved, and so it was something that it was an incredible effort on both institutions. And this is now a description of the equipment that was provided. I've showed the equipment in Chile, but this is a little better explained here with the thermal camera, laser dimensioning system. This is to measure temperature, the Crestel. And then there were the station, a meteorological station that we had, like the one we had in Chile. This is a way to measure the velocity of air passing through openings, like in a door. And then a way to measure energy with special devices. This is just a depiction of the thermal camera. What you see with lights in the windows is areas that have cracks and temperature can pass from one place to another. Very important, especially in cool conditions where the cool air can seep into, but hot air can also seep into. So a seal envelope closing those cracks were important in this demonstration projects. And also the idea of natural light, how much light enters a building is very important. We know that depends on the height. The higher the building, the more light penetrates in the interior. The lower, the less light. Very important because this saves energy when you have natural light. And this was a tabulation of the energy used. We wanted to have special meters, which you have here. These are meters that are special that we could monitor from a distance. Put the meter in Brazil or Chile and monitor it in Miami. And then the whole idea of producing energy, like the solar houses that I show you. This is a very important component of the whole strategy that we saw very well in Brazil. There are many systems to measure the use of energy and sustainability in general. The most popular probably in the world is one called LEED, which you have on the extreme left. There's a certificate for that, and you have different certificates depending on points. One is called gold, the other one is called silver, the other is one called platinum, and it gives you points depending on how many of these categories you meet to make the building sustainable. Very, very popular, very well known in the world. This is the one we had in mind for the 3 municipalities. BREEAM, which we have here, is from England, and it's important in many parts of Europe. DGNB is from Germany, and of course, it has an influence in some of the Nordic countries, like Scandinavia and Sweden and Finland. And CASB is from Japan, which is, Japan is a very conscious country about sustainability. So they're all very good. The one we were planning to use was LEED, which is, you have, the letters are there, LEED, leadership in energy and environmental design. But what was interesting for us that Brazil has already some of these ways to measure energy and to make buildings sustainable. We found this manual, which is very good. We read it. It's excellent. I think it's called, at least in English, RTQC. And I mean, it's pretty complete. I mean, simple, much simpler than LEED and the others, but quite efficient. And they were measuring the same things we had. The envelope of the building, which I have here, illumination, which I have here, and air conditioning, which I have here. And I hope you're following my pointer. So it was the same thing that we were trying to do. I mean, and it's in Portuguese, it's very much in Brazil. And we also found that there was one in Rio de Janeiro, Quali Verde, and simpler, very, very practical. We found this stuff. This is meant to be for the general public, I suppose, not exactly for professionals. And I mean, read the thing. I mean, we were thinking, why don't we use some of these things in Brazil since they have it? So our objective was to combine both, I mean, the best of both systems. The one that we brought from the United States and the ones that Brazil have already spearheaded. I was told by my colleagues in Goiânia that although these things are known in Brazil, they are not that much used, which is a shame. I can say the same with the United States. Don't think that we are doing so much better. But this was also a system of points. It will give you points if you reduce water consumption, if you reduce hot water, and you get a number of points very similar to the system that we have brought with us. And we also found that the company of electricity in Goiânia had also pamphlet leaflets telling the general public or the people that went to the office how to save energy. And they have this little maquette here with dots or buttons that will tell you how much a kitchen will consume, how much a bedroom, and so on and so forth. So there was an awareness that we were surprised in Brazil, pleasantly surprised actually, that there were efforts already in place, except that the general public did not know much of them. So we did our exercises. We centered on some clinics. There were a few of them that we designed. I went after to find information. This one has the average consumption, and we did similar things. Each country did its own take, its own way. And then also was published this little leaflet that was planned to be given to a general public. I don't think we succeeded so much in terms of making a much larger presence with our grant. Goiânia is big. We had a lot of municipal buildings. And so we only penetrated a little bit. But at least in the school that we were associated with, this was known. It went to the students, which was a good thing. And I understand that there have been efforts after our project that had continued the student academic level. And this is also one of those leaflets that were distributed for the public. Finally, the case of Trinidad is a repetition of the others, except that here we work with a professional office. Trinidad is in front of Venezuela, and it's the last island of the chain of islands in the Caribbean. From Cuba all the way to Trinidad, being the last one. This is like the tail. If this is the head, Cuba the head, then this is the tail. Or you can say the reverse. Very nice island, tropical, very, very hot. This is hot throughout the year. So we were concerned here 100% with air conditioning, no heating whatsoever. And also we took a municipal building the same way. This one was, I think, it's a municipal office for sure, and there were some clinics. But the company we worked with was a professional company, not a university. It's interesting. The university we tried to engage was very difficult. They didn't have time. We spent about 6 months trying to rally a group of professors. Impossible. And so we decided to go with an office that was already settled there. And they were excellent. Really, they have a very good program, especially monitoring. what we were doing in Miami, they were doing in Trinidad and Tobago. They will install sensors in the buildings that they have hired or have contract with, and they were monitoring the energy use on those buildings from the central office in Trinidad and Tobago, and they were working in all the Caribbean. And so it was great to see an office that was doing what we were trying to do in the first place. And they had these measurements and so on. I won't take much of your time on that. And I mean, the data was excellent. They had the charts already because they do this normally for all the clients. And these are the buildings that were involved in the Ministry of Public Utilities and some large buildings like this one. So we overall, I mean, we were combining the data, learning from one place to another. And from that end was a great success. Man. From the point of view of making these changes or making buildings reduce energy, we were not that successful at all. Man. It requires some money, maybe plenty of money, especially in the Goiânia. 400 buildings would require a lot of money to reduce energy. But well, at least we started with that. We hope that in time, things are going to be turning in that direction. These are the three group of people that I was associated with mostly. The one in the middle is the minister of the prime minister, I suppose, of Trinidad and Tobago in the middle. Okay, this one is a house that I designed and built in Costa Rica about 10 years ago. It's less about energy and more about sustainability. Some of the things I learned in the process I applied in this building, and it's located in an extraordinary location, really, between two bays. This is in the north part of the country. This is on the Pacific coast. Costa Rica has two oceans, Atlantic and Pacific, and this is on the Pacific side. The owner said that he discovered this place flying over and bought not only the place where the house is, but the entire bay on the right, this bay here, which is called Playa Honda. It's got an island in front, and this is with low tide that you can connect to the island, and when it's high tide, then the ocean closes in here. The house is there. It's a good size structure, about 1,200 square meters. And the location was selected because there was another building here before, so we don't destroy the forest. I mean, the owner wanted to have the house in the middle so he can look at the bay, but they have been destroying the trees here. So we decided to go here, which is very nice because between two bays, one bay here and another bay here, and in front of the island in here. And so this is the house that's built from one extreme. The house is there. There was on purpose left the trees in front for two reasons. One, for ecological reasons, because the fauna, this is the animals in the area, could travel in front of the house and behind the house. If we cut the trees, means some species will be cut as well. So we decided to leave the house with the forest so that the animal lives will be less interrupted. The other was to produce shading so that the building would not warm too much. And so in that sense, we will be using some kind of passive system instead of an active system of air conditioning. And the third reason was that the owners wanted to have privacy. They didn't want to have the house shown so much. The concept, you may say, if we use now architectural words, is that the house was going to be about the same height of trees and be open as well. So the landscape will be continuous. The house has no air conditioning in the public areas. And so the wind will pass through here, and the same height of the house is a similar height of the canopy of trees. This is the section, which is quite dramatic because it's a big drop between the house and the water. And the house has two wings. A portion is the social areas, then there's a tower, and then there's a dorm behind that. The other end has the staff quarters and the children's quarters. And in the middle is a plaza for cars to have a turnaround. The tower is important because we didn't want to cut the trees. And so you can see the ocean from here down, but it's hard to see the horizon because you have the trees in the middle. So we made the tower so you could go above the trees and then connect with the horizon. And then the geometry of the house comes from the bay itself. This is the large bay in here. And then there are small little elements like that and like that. Even the shape of the peninsula here is like that. So the house took that shape. I mean, this is an inversion of the area of the peninsula. I'm sorry, of the peninsula here and the area of the bay. And then a sub geometry came later from a magical point, which is the hill, the topmost portion of the house, announced the way that these elements were going to be playing. And so this is the plan of the house, which has on the extreme right, a wing for the social area, which is completely open, no air conditioning. This is the tower in the middle, and the basement has two enormous refrigerators because there's no towns around this place, and the owners have to store the food here for a long stay. And then above is the master bedroom. But number 5 that you see there are cisterns to collect water. So the water from the roof will be collected here. And also, almost as important, is collect water from the hill. I mean, if I follow my pointer, they go into a trough here and then collect it in number 6. Now, this is not clean water, but it can be used for irrigation. If we follow now the first floor, this is a hilly site, so it's very hard to turn around. We had to create a plaza in number 4, so a car can go into the garage or turn around and return. This is the master bedroom here, and these are bedrooms here in the tower. This is the canal, you may say, canal to collect water for the cistern. Now, we did something interesting that I was based in Miami. Obviously, my office is in Miami. And I asked the contractors in Costa Rica to keep sending me pictures of the progress of the work. And we have a digital model in Miami that I'm sure you do the same in Brazil. And I was superimposing the pictures that were sent from Costa Rica with my digital model simultaneously. So I could be looking at the progress of construction from Miami without having to visit the site so often. And you can see here that this is an absolute coincidence. It's fantastic. I mean, the digital model was fantastic. Absolute coincidence between the model itself and the picture that was sent. One is like a skeleton and the other one is the picture. And this is the house as built. These were local materials. The stone comes from the area. The woods come from the area. The only thing that was imported from France was the roof, because this roof is with lead. I don't know if you can translate lead is the material that they use, like the dome of the Roman Pantheon. Plumbus is in Latin, plomo is in Spanish, and lead is in English. This will be a very long-lasting material that will last, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 years. And so the house is completely open with enormous solar shading devices. And it's uninterrupted. You see the line of trees passing through it. And then these are the water and energy package that we have. I can read it to you very quickly. One was a porous drainage swale. And this is one here. This is the hill coming from here. Water comes down like that, is collected here and sent into number 2, which is for irrigation. This is the stormwater cistern. Then rainwater cistern is in here. This is to collect water from the roof. There were solar cell modules on the roof to produce energy. And there was a solar pump for micro irrigation. So some of these elements of energy being producing were there. And I got one more diagram for that, in which you have the roof collecting rainwater. It goes into the cistern. The cistern will feed the pool. It had to be treated with chlorine in here. This is the normal ventilation from top of the solar shading devices, and this window here. And there were been all the elements there. I mean that, especially insulation, we use very heavy insulation to protect from heat. And this is the last picture I have of this house. Now, because the trees were blocking part of the view, I mean, but only partially, because in the dry season, the trees shed the leaves, I mean, no leaves with the trees, and the trees become like skeletons. And so you can see completely the landscape. In the rainy season, you don't go to the sea, at least in Costa Rica. There are mosquitoes and rains too much. So we made this little thing outside the house so you could connect with the larger landscape and see the island and see the two bays. And then that's it. Obrigado. Thank you. I'm open for questions.
Obrigada, professor Camilo, por essa explicação, por essa palestra tão interessante. Eu queria abrir a perguntas para vocês que estão aqui nos assistindo. Enquanto o pessoal pensa, professor Camilo, gostaria de fazer um questionamento. Nós percebemos que muitos são os ambientes onde o professor já desenvolveu um trabalho. E no Chile, né, o senhor também desenvolveu um trabalho e mostrou um trabalho aqui em Goiânia. Por que o professor acha, né, eu tenho a minha opinião, mas por que o professor acha que aqui no Brasil nós não temos essas práticas tão desenvolvidas, como o professor mesmo comentou? Qual seria a hipótese?
It's a complicated thing. I mean, don't think that it's only Brazil. I mean, I think the rest of the world is in some kind of denial of what is going to happen with the environment. The political groups, I mean, in all these countries want the economy to grow, not to be restricted. They prefer to waste more energy and make the building more agile and prosperous than to restrict these things. So it goes to many levels of difficulty, political, social as well. I mean, we are not so aware of that. There's not that much education. But if you combine all these ingredients, I mean, this information, political ideas of progress tied to wasting more energy, and then just lack of care, I mean, then you have the results that you have. And as I said, I don't think the United States is any different. There's awareness in the universities like you, I mean, but the general public, I don't think they are as trained or as aware, I mean, of the difficulties that we are going to be through, I mean, with climate change and all the sequels of difficulties associated with that. Did I answer your question?
Sim, professor, respondeu. E uma coisa que me vem... Professor, pediu para ficar um pouco mais próximo do microfone. Sim, professor, respondeu. Uma questão que eu acho que também faz parte desse conjunto é a disponibilidade dos recursos naturais. Eu entendo que no Brasil nós temos uma disponibilidade maior e que isso também influencia em não desenvolvermos técnicas para a economia. E aí, não sei se o professor concorda que isso também é uma variável.
It's extremely valuable. I mean, Brazil is a very rich country in natural resources. And as far as I understand, I mean, from my perspective, it's been difficult to, I'll say, control, I mean, the use of these resources, especially land, in, for instance, the Amazon jungle, wood, it's been very difficult. And I don't know what will make it possible, I mean, to make an economy that is, I mean, rich in these resources, but at least also sustainable in maintaining them. Because, I mean, when you cut, for instance, the forest, it's hard to make it back. Yeah, it's something that is there, and you know that is occurring. On the other hand, that richness could make enormous prosperity if it's done appropriately, I think.
Professor, tem uma teoria chamada Teoria dos Estágios da Moral, que é de Lawrence Kolber. Ele é um psicólogo americano e ele desenvolve essa teoria relacionando a nossa capacidade moral, né, de nos relacionarmos com as outras pessoas e obedecermos um código civil pré-estabelecido. Conseguimos respeitar o código ou não. E uma pesquisadora brasileira, que apoiada nos estudos deste psicólogo, que é o Lawrence Kolber, ela se chama Ana Maria Brasil Biagio, ela escreveu uma relação entre moral e ecologia. E eu, se o senhor permitir, gostaria de encaminhar algum material sobre essa relação, porque eu acho que responde muito bem a essa questão que nós não conseguimos mapear, né? Por que as pessoas não entendem que precisamos respeitar a natureza, enfim. E aí nós nos valemos de uma outra área, que é a área da psicologia, que não é a nossa área, mas que cada vez mais tem tido uma interferência no trabalho do arquiteto e urbanista, recentemente as questões relacionadas à biofilia. Então, acho que podemos, né, Lloyd, fazer aí uma parceria com o professor e investigar. O que você acha, Roseli? Só ele querer.
Are you asking me? I'm sorry.
Sim.
And if you're asking me, I mean, definitely, I'll be, I mean, more than happy to receive this information. It sounds extremely interesting.
Que bom, professor. Ficamos muito contentes também aqui nessa última mesa de encerramento, né, podermos firmar essa parceria de pesquisa, porque é um assunto que aflige a todos nós.
Obrigado, professor Camilo. Eu aprendi bastante.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I wish I could say even a few words in Portuguese. I mean, there's a Brazilian student with us, and I was going to ask her to write for me a few things that I could say nicely. Unfortunately, I mean, the time went backwards. Instead of being an hour later in my mind, it was an hour before. And so I could not say anything in Portuguese, which I would love to have done. But anyway, I mean, I enjoy very much having this company in Brazil. It makes me
Professor, uma vez me chamaram para fazer uma conferência no México e me deram o dia errado. Eu estava numa quinta-feira pensando que a palestra era na sexta e me ligaram e disseram: Pérola, estamos no auditório, você não vai entrar na palestra? Então,
that's even worse. I'm so glad that I made it. That I was in my office.
Mas eu também estava no meu escritório, mas foi um susto, foi um grande susto. Mas entendo você perfeitamente. Foi muito bem, foi ótima a sua palestra, muito obrigada.
Thank you. See you then. Take care.
Professor Rosales, eu queria, só finalizando, agradecer muito a sua presença né? Você ter reservado esse tempo para estar aqui com a gente, aqui no nosso fórum, aqui no Mackenzie, e fica o convite, né, para vir conhecer o Mackenzie e estar aqui com a gente, né? E como a Pérola falou, e Lloyd, você já conhece a Lloyd, sabe toda a competência dela, espero que a gente possa firmar aí algum convênio, algumas pesquisas em conjunto, vai ser muito bom. Obrigado mais uma vez, né? Obrigado a Lloyd por ter convidado o professor Rosales, obrigado a Pérola de ter aceitado também vir aqui debater essa tarde, foi muito bom.
Appreciate that. Thank you. You got a nice spot there. We know Mackenzie University. It's well known in our circles. So I'm very, very honored to be with you.
Obrigada.
Obrigada. Sabemos que se você tem horário, então fica aqui o nosso boa tarde.
Yep.
Até mais vezes.
Yes, thank you.